which are literally introduced in the part of the digestion of the fats. This is mainly the lipase, which is introduced from the oral cavity, and this is the lingual type of a lipase. And as a result, the first type of the first step, sorry, of the digestion is literally starts in the part of the stomach. Although the digestion here is so small that mainly the whole digestion of the fats is dependent on the small intestine, the part of the duodenum. And that's why particularly you can see here why it is dependent on that, because first of all, compared to the proteins and compared to the carbohydrates, which are more polar type of the molecules rather than the fat, this means that in the aquatic solution, the carbohydrates and the proteins are much easier dissolved rather than the lipids, as we know. Yes. As a result, always in the aquatic solution, the lipid has the tendency to aggregate in the larger droplets. And as a result, the biggest problem here will be the surface area of the lipids, of the fats, to be digested. As a result, to overcome this problem, you know very well that we do have the formation of the bile with the help of a liver and its propagation towards the duodenum. And that's where it happens, the part of the emulsification of the fats, meaning that here we do have the sizes of the droplets of the lipid are simply decreased, and as a result we have more surface area to which is exposed to the enzymes. That's a good interesting information. You can see here that the size, the particular diameter of the particles which are produced after the emulsification is less than even 1 micrometer, and as a result it's increasing approximately 1,000 times. It's increasing the whole surface area of the lipids and their exposure to the enzymatic activity. So as a result here, again, coming back, you do have a part of the nice diagram from the Guyton where you do have, so the part of the fat, it's emulsification, and as a result, only it doesn't mean that it's already digested. No, it's just increasing the surface area. And here comes the part of the enzyme, which is the pancreatic lipase, as you can see. And mostly because you know that most of the types of fats which are entering through the food are mainly composed of are mainly represented by the triglycerides, which you know very well are composed of the monoglycerol molecule and the fatty acids, 3 fatty acids, that's why triglyceride, which are associated with the glycerol molecule. As a result, what we have here, you see that after the emulsification of the fat, you can see that we do have the lipase activity, which is mainly produces the part of the fatty acids as well as the monoglyceride. So what is interesting that you can see that there are some additional type of the lipases which are seen in the part of the epithelial cells of the small intestine, but which are containing the lipase also. But this is the type of the enteric lipase. Although after the complete emulsification and the pancreatic lipase, most commonly these enteric type of lipases are not needed and are not used in the case of the digestion of the fat. As a result, what you see here, a schematical representation of the steps. So of the portion of the fat and portion of the fat and the part of the bile. As a result, you can see the smaller lipid droplets, and only after that we do have the hydrolysis with the help of the lipase. Now what is happening next is that although yes, the digestion wasn't that difficult if there is the emulsification, but the most interesting part is how the lipids are absorbed. Because okay, we do have the fatty portion and the monoglycerides which are produced. But the most interesting part here for us is that first of all, as we said, they are hydrophobic, meaning that they are non-polar. As the result, it means that we don't need any type of the transport in this case. Yes, I do believe it's clear because they can pass readily through the plasma membrane of the microvilli and enter directly into the epithelial cell. But what is happening here? So if in case of the amino acids and the carbohydrates, this part was very how to say, it was easier for it to pass towards the blood vessel. I mean the capillaries. In this case, it doesn't happen like that. First of all, you can see that we have the resynthesis. Again, back again, we are synthesizing the fats in the epithelial cells, and that's particularly we do have the formation of triglycerides, for example, as well as the phospholipids here. And as a result, these particular lipids then, because you know that whatever absorption it will be and wherever it will be, it still will be the aquatic solution. Yes, it still will be the water there, and as a result we need the carrier type of the structures which will be water soluble to help us to transport the fatty molecules. As a result, as soon as we do have the resynthesis of the triglycerides and phospholipids, in this case we also have their combination to the proteins and small protein structures, and as a result we produce the structures which we call the chylomicrons. I do believe you know and you have heard about that, at least from the biochemistry. And as a result, these chylomicrons are now can be entering towards the interesting part, not the blood vessels but the lacteals, which are, as you remember, these are the projections of the lymphatic vessels. Particularly, these are like a small capillaries, a lymphatic capillaries, which are projecting into each intestinal villi. And as a result, what do we have in this case? We do have the absorption of the chylomicrons towards the lymphatic blood vessels, right? The lymphatic vessels, right? Than the blood vessels. How it is reintroduced into the blood, I do believe it's also clear from the body systems 3 that you know that in this case we do have the we know that all of the lymphatic vessels are simply entering towards the venous blood with the help of the large lymphatic vessel, which we call the thoracic duct. As a result, the absorbed type of the lipids are simply entering towards the blood through the lymphatic vessels. That's why, if you remember, when we saw the structure, the functional structure of the villi with the parts of the blood vessels and so on, there was also the part of the lacteal representing the part of a lymphatic vessel, lymphatic vessel. As a result, from the part of the amino acids and the carbohydrates which are normally entering and absorbed towards the blood and directly entered, according to your knowledge in the body systems 3, are entering towards the hepatic circulation. Yes, and that's where through the hepatic portal vein, the part of the lipids are introduced directly into the portion of the superior vena cava, and as a result, after that, are passing to the other blood vessels. So as a result, or here we can see how it looks like. So you can see that particularly the absorption itself towards the cell, and then resynthesizing of the lipids and the additional part of a protein here, and as a result, we do have particles which we call the chylomicrons. So what do we need to remember from that particular from that particular chapter, that first of all, what is the main idea of the digestion? What type of the reaction do we have here? I need from you to know what are the peculiarities of a digestion as well as the absorption, which we've talked about. Now, till now, do you have any questions? Okay, good. That means that I can ask you some questions. Yes, that's very well. Let's go through some questions for similar to the midterm. For some period of time, I will stop presenting, okay? And we'll be back again with it, okay? So we do have here, so here are some useful questions. Unfortunately, I cannot show it to you, but I will go through them. We'll read them for you, and let's go through like what can be the answer and so on, okay? Uh, sorry, you have a question, Phoebe? Just a second, please. To be honest, there are a very small amount of clinical correlations on the part of a guiton, but there are some parts also in my presentations. Let me recheck. I will decide, but I do believe not that many. For example, a good question. Sorry. Uh, for example, just a second. Okay, that's interesting question. Look, we have a 10-year-old boy, a 10-year-old boy who consumes a glass of milk and 2 cookies. So 10-year-old boy who is consuming a glass of the milk and the 2 cookies, and his lower esophageal sphincter and the part of the fundus start to relax while the food is still in the esophagus. So the question is, which type of the substance is most likely to give us the relaxation of the lower esophageal sphincter and the fundus of this boy? And again, a 10-year-old boy consumes a glass of milk and 2 cookies. His lower esophageal sphincter and the fundus relax while the food is still in the esophagus. And the question is, which substance is most likely to cause the relaxation of a lower esophageal sphincter and the fundus in this boy? So there are different answers. These are the gastrin, the motilin, the nitric oxide, the norepinephrine, or none of the above? And again, the gastrin, the motilin, the nitric oxide, or norepinephrine, or none of the above? What do you think? Okay, okay, Mohammed. Any other suggestions? Any other suggestions, guys? Sorry, what was that? None of the above. Okay. So again and again, we have a 10-year-old boy who has the who is consuming the milk and the 2 cookies, and lower esophageal sphincter and the fundus starting to relax. And the question is, what can be the one which is relaxing these the structures? So is it the gastrin? Is it the histamine? Sorry, no histamine, motilin. This is the nitric oxide. This is norepinephrine, or it is none of the above. What do you think? So none of the above. Nitric oxide. Tamila, what? None. Any other suggestions, guys? Come on, come on. Let's think together, yeah? Epinephrine. Norepinephrine. Okay, I will not torture you too much, but I want you to know that and write it down, that in this case, we will mainly have the nitric oxide, and particularly why it happens in this case that when we have a swallowing process, in this case, the part of the stomach and the lower esophageal sphincter, normally they are relaxing, as we know, yes? Because when we do have the contractility movement from the region of the pharyngeal part as well as the upper part of the esophagus, we do have also the relaxation of a part of the stomach, yes, as well as the lower esophageal sphincter. So that's, if you remember, we call this type of the function or of the process, that's what we call the receptive type of a relaxation, yes? So sorry. So as a result, what is happening in this case, this is mainly dependent, if you remember, on the part of the vagus, yes, so the vagal nerve. And as a result, because it is dependent on the part of the vagus, that's why in this case we need to think about the neurotransmitter, what type of a neurotransmitter can be giving us this function. And in this case, please remember or write it down that in this case we do have a part of a nitric oxide, most commonly, is the part of a neurotransmitter that is particularly giving us the receptive type of the relaxation. Okay, so this is important for you to remember. So, for example, why not the part of the why not, for example, the part of the motilin, yes, or why not the part of the gastrin, or why not particularly the norepinephrine, yes? I do believe it's clear that in the case of norepinephrine, first of all, it although yes, norepinephrine, that was logical answer, to be honest, that it can be giving us the some decrease in the contraction of a smooth muscles, and that's for sure. But mainly it can be happening in the small intestine, right than in the part of the stomach or the lower esophagus, and particularly in this process of the receptive relaxation. Why not, for example, the part of the motilene also? In this case, we do have it is not how to say it is more associated with a part of the contractions rather than the relaxation. Yes. And in the case of gastrin, for example, it is having a really much less activity, less effect during particularly this receptive relaxation. And as a result, mainly the only type of a neurotransmitter which can help us in this case, because this mainly happens through the part of the vagal portion, this is the nitric oxide. Although the nitric oxide, as we know, is the how do we call it, a very small type, but type of the neurotransmitter, but its formation is really very different. It is mainly produced as a part of the cell bodies of the vagus nerves, and as a result propagated towards the stomach and the portion of LES, or lower esophageal sphincter, as a part of the receptive relaxation phenomena. Let's see the other question. Just a second. What questions do I have here? Oh, that's also interesting. So we have a 19-year-old man who is mainly fed intravenously for several weeks, sure, because of some accident. And here we do have, because of the intravenous feeding, we have the atrophy of the gastrointestinal mucosa. So the question is, what, because most likely, because the blood level of which of the following hormones is reduced, we have the atrophy of the gastrointestinal mucosa. And again, 19-year-old man who is fed intravenously, and after a particular accident, and he has the gastrointestinal mucosa atrophy. And the question is, which particular hormone is reduced, which can be giving us the atrophy? And these are the cholecystokinin only, gastrin only, secretin only, all of the above, or none of the above. What do you think? So cholecystokinin, gastrin, secretin only, all of the above, or none of the above. I don't see, just a second, let me see what you are answering, dears. Okay, so the answer is either none of the above or the gastrin, and again gastrin, and again gastrin. Okay, any other suggestions? What can be the correct answer in this case, guys? So okay, all right, guys, so that's true. Particularly the gastrin has the most important role in the mucosal growth. It's not about hormone doing something. It's because of the lack of this hormone, we do have the gastrointestinal mucosal undergrowth, so the atrophy simply. Rani, could you explain to us, switch on the microphone and tell us why you think that it was the gastrin? Why you thought like that?
Hey doctor, how are you?
Hello.
Well, I thought it's gastrin because mainly gastrin has the most potent trophic effect on gastric cells. It stimulate their growth.
That's
So in the
true.
absence of gastrin, atrophy would occur. That's the most logical answer, I think.
Why you would not think about the CCK?
Uh, I don't know actually because I just know that gastrin stimulates growth. That's the only thing I thought about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but why, for example, not CCK or anything else? Or why not, or none of them above, or all of them above? Okay, I agree with you. I will not torture you too much, Rani. Thank you so much for the correct answer. So yes, that's true, because if you remember even this part of the table, yes, for the portion of the gastrin, it was important in the how to say, uh, in the more formation and more activation of the part of the mucosal lining. And here comes Jad. Could you please explain to us? You can switch on your microphone and talk to us, please. Jad, are you with us?
Yeah. Hello, doctor.
Hello, dear.
Actually, CCK stimulates pancreatic enzyme.
True.
That's, yeah, there is no correlation concerning the stomach.
True. So as a result, these two different types of the hormones are mainly associated with the different parts of a digestive system, and particularly in the case of a gastrin, which itself even contains this name, it is mainly associated with the part of the gastrointestinal mucosa atrophy. So, okay, let's go through the next portion. Oh, that's also an interesting question. Mass movements are often stimulated after a meal by the distension of the stomach. And you remember this reflex. How did we call this reflex? What do you remember? That we do have the mass movements which are dependent on the meal which is introduced into the stomach. Do you remember this reflex? We had it there. Yes, but the that's true. It is stretching. It is stretching, but then the effect of what on what? That was the idea. Mohammed, what do you think? Hmm? Hello, guys. So when we do have the stimulation, because the stimulation of the mass movement, because of the meal entering towards the stomach and making the distension. That's true, Rani. This is the gastrocolic type of the reflex. I agree with you. And but also we do have a second type of a reflex which helps us in the same, in the mass movement. What do you think? What is the second type of a reflex? Who remembers? What type of reflex do we have also here? Yes, but particularly now here we are talking about literally the reflex. So, well, not only the part of the stomach here, distension of the stomach, but also the distension of the duodenum, and it also causes the increased and stimulated mass movements, and then the evacuation of the mass. And this is particularly what we call the duodenocolic reflex. Please remember these two because maybe they will come for you in the midterm. Okay, next question, what we can go through. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you, Jed. Well, the question is, you have a 55-year-old male who consumes a meal consisting of 20% of fat, 50% of carbohydrate, and a 30% of protein. The following gastrointestinal hormones are released at various times during the next 6 hours. Okay? So the question is here now, first of all, what are these hormones? I do believe it's clear. This will be the gastrin, secretin, motilin, also the glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide, as well as the CCK. Well, the question is, which structure is most likely to release all 5 hormones in this man? And again, a 55-year-old man consumes a meal consisting of 20% of fat, 50% of carbohydrates, 30% of protein. And the following gastrointestinal hormones are released at the various times during the next 6 hours. We have a gastrin, we have a secretin, we have a motilin, we have a glucose-dependent insulinotropic peptide, as well as CCK. Which structure is the most likely to release all 5 hormones in this man? And the answers are antrum, colon, duodenum, esophagus, ileum, none of the above, all of the above. What do you think, guys? Yes, that's true. To be honest, it just wasn't here the part of the yeyunum because I want you to remember that all of the 5 gastrointestinal hormones are released not only by the portion of the duodenum but also by the yeyunum. Please remember, and particularly in the case in the part of the, for example, CCK, yes, and some small portion of CCK and some part also of the secretin also can be dependent on the ileal secretion. So, and in the case of the colon and esophagus, sure, we don't have any type of the secretions in these regions. Okay, and one more question, and that's where we'll finish for today. Just a second. But these are secretions. Oh, I think this one. Just a sec. Just a second. Mhm. Which hormone is released by the presence of fat and a protein in the small intestine and has a major effect in the decreasing of the gastric emptying? And again, which hormone is released by the presence of fat and a protein in a small intestine and has a major effect in decreasing the gastric emptying? Answers. Just a second. CCK, gastrin, motilin, secretin, none of the above. And again, CCK, gastrin, motilin, secretin, or none of the above. Okay, Mohammed. Any other any other answers? What do you think? Any other options? True. True, true, true. So the CCK is the only type of the gastrointestinal hormone that is very much presenting in the inhibition of the gastric motility, most commonly because we are talking about now the physiological type of the conditions. That's why that's true. The CCK is the answer here. And why not the others? Let's ask it in another way. Why not the others? Why not, for example, the part of a secretin? What do we remember about that hormones? Hmm? Okay. No fats. Sorry, Rani, I didn't understand. What did you write? True. That's true. So, and as a result, particularly here, we do have the portion of the CCK, and as a result, that's true. This is the main answer. That's true. Okay, this is it particularly for today. I do believe it's clear. I do believe it's clear that that's true. So the idea was here that we do have the part of the proteins and the fats, first of all, yes. And that's why the CCK here is the most correct answer. And thank you very much. First of all, do you have any questions? Rani, it's already uploaded on the drive. Please recheck. So there are the with my computer. So you were texting something. Could you please show me again? Because as I came back, I cannot see anything.